some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name's Kole Ross.
And I'm Mike Villalobos.
And you're listening to a Bonfireside Chat Appendix. It is an undead second favorite.
And this week we are reading your responses to Heide's Tower of Flame and the Blue Cathedral. Thanks so much for sticking around, Mike.
Thanks, no problem.
Yeah, waited a whole week.
Yeah, I know. It was awkward listening to you go to work and listening.
I probably should have muted my microphone.
Yeah. I'm sorry you guys had to listen to me eat those chicken wings, and it's probably pretty gross for you guys. And
yeah. Sorry about the crying.
Yeah. I was sorry I watched the crying game over and over. So, yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, this is where we read your responses. And we're going to start out with some errata, and I am liberally throwing in the follow-up moniker on this. Before we jump in, I kind of want to say, over the past couple of appendices, kind of laid out like that briefer is better and on topic is better. If you wrote in with something and you don't hear it on this episode or any given episode, know that I am holding on to them for a time when it's going to be appropriate to bring them up. So that is kind of the way that we're going. So don't have your feelings hurt. We are reading and looking at and trying to find the best place to drop these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also we're holding them in case you run for office.
Yes.
At a given point. So like, this guy thought the Dragon Rider was hard. Do you want him to be the governor of...
Will he
Missouri?
be able to answer the hard questions at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll get us started with the first errata / follow-up. Alex says via comment, and if you want to comment on any given episode, that is totally a thing you can do. For example, to comment on this, you would just go to Duckfeed.tv /BSC/37 and drop that little comment there. So Alex writes in saying, White Phantoms can use warmth to heal bosses and other enemies. That is in response to us asking if White Phantoms are able to interact with other enemies in any way. So that would be a great way to be a jerk.
Yeah. Yep. If you weren't using Life Drain Patch, to be a jerk. Because my understanding is at least currently that will affect your allies as well.
Yeah.
So I might be wrong about that, but...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
Alex also says, maybe the same Alex. Maybe a different Alex.
I'm not sure.
Maybe a different gender. Who knows? But Alex says via contact, I think the Heide Knights might have had some sort of connection to Artorias, since at least the one in the Forest of Fallen Giants fights with his sword one-handed, while his other arm just kind of hangs at his side.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Like they looked a little bit Artorias-y to me when I first saw them. A little bit like a mix of like Artorias and a Solaire.
Yeah.
Kind of put together. But I was looking around on YouTube and I ran into a lore video that was talking about Heide being Astora. And it's not totally outside the realm of possibility. Like he makes kind of good arguments. I'll put it in the show notes. And it's got to be new. Like it's got like 100 views or something like that. But he mentioned that, and he said because of the Heide Knights are emulating Solaire's armor style or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's different than them being Artorias, but it kind of in just the subject of them reminding people.
And the association between Astora and Lordran and Solaire and the Flame makes perfect sense in that case as well.
Yeah, you get the bone dust there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
In your case, like in the canonical version, you are the Dark Lord, while Solaire in his own realm actually rekindles the fire himself. So, like the Sublime Bone Dust might actually be Solaire helping you out again.
Yeah.
So,
in which case, I would use it for soup.
Gross.
Creme de sole. Mike, do you want to read Cody?
Sure. Cody via contact states, I believe that Melentia is hollow. On my first playthrough, I noticed that the parts of her hands that are uncovered look hollow.
I totally intended before we record tonight that to go back and use the old binoculars to take a look, and I could not verify this, so I will take your word, Cody.
Yeah, I had no idea. Is this just like an interesting tidbit, or did we say that she wasn't hollow?
I think that there was some discussion about whether or not she was.
Okay.
At least I will own that. I asked whether she was or not, since she was a survivor, kind of the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hanging around in the remnants after the wars, and explicitly says so. It was left uncertain to my mind whether or not she was hollow. I don't think we arrived at any conclusion. Except to say that, she was doing her best to survive. And her trying to collect souls by being a merchant makes sense, too. Because there's a long history of merchants selling stuff to get souls to try and placate their creeping madness. Yeah. So moving on to the responses proper, I took some effort to categorize these. So we're going to start out with kind of the gameplay stories. Sean Wagner writes in via Facebook saying, as this was the first area I visited and stubbornly pushed forth on, my health quickly found itself at the 3/4 mark. I became desperate as the nights started to disappear and I couldn't overcome the Dragon Rider, and I decided to use an effigy. But in misreading the description, I tried burning it to restore my health. Whoops. After that didn't work, I tried burning another effigy, and I am ashamed to say a third before figuring out that you have to consume them from your inventory. At that point, I may have had one effigy left and not enough souls to level, and I was feeling very desperate. Instead of turning back, I pushed on and defeated the Dragon Rider on my next try. My do-or-die moment in Dark Souls 2 was early on, but it kept me motivated through the Ruin Sentinels and other points that may have hollowed me to the game, as I knew, despite the transient nature of Dark Souls 2, that there would always be a way to overcome. Yeah, I did the same thing. I burned an effigy because that's what you do with effigies, right?
Right.
Straight is in the name. Yeah. Well, also, and there's the tradition of burning humanities or to kindle bonfires. So, like, yes, you could use a humanity, but you could also burn them. It's not, if you're thinking of them as a direct one-to-one.
Now, one thing, I've actually never burned an effigy at a bonfire. Is there a way you can do that?
Yeah.
Oh, because I guess I've only ever tried at the Majula bonfire, but does it only apply to like areas that you're in already?
I think it
applies, PvP areas, because the primary effect is it's supposed to lower your chance of being invaded.
Okay.
Yeah. To what degree, I don't know. I mean, invasions happen so rarely right now, because of people not getting the invasion items until kind of later levels.
Right.
Interesting. I think I avoided burning them until I had actually gotten some Sublime Bone Dust and burned that. And then I was like, oh, well, let's try burning this effigy. And I was at Majula, and it didn't allow me to. So I was not 100% certain on how exactly to go about that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I wonder if that works in on NPC invaders. Because I could see some points like later on, especially if you make a certain mistake, wanting to keep NPC invaders from hounding you.
Yeah, or if it works on Red Phantoms and New Game Plus. Because that would be, some of those are nasty.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. We'll have to take a look at that. Yeah. Josh Redding says via Facebook, my first thought on entering the area was wrong way, considering I came here before the Forest of Fallen Giants. I then proceeded not to come back until finishing the Lost Bastille and Sinner's Rest, which meant I blew through the area rather quickly. The architecture and landscapes are gorgeous and make me wonder if that has any relation to Flan and Guinevere. I'm sure I'm not the only one. The Cathedral Blue was a little bit disappointed in how limited our access was to it, and I was looking forward to exploring a whole new thing, not just 2 rooms. Finally, this is not Ornstein, but rather an imitator. No support given. Just a statement.
I respect the boldness.
Yeah, I respect it. I will defend to the death your right to say it. Yeah. If I may not agree with what you say.
Yeah.
There. I didn't mention it, but I actually came here. I came here first and didn't come back here until after I'd done Lost Bastille and Sinner's Rest as well. So I was also very overleveled, and then it was still easy when I came back. When I figure out the sequence of the game, the second playthrough. Yeah. But the first playthrough, I only came here first. I didn't come here after the Giants because I ended up taking the nest to Lost Bastille, and that area is not so overwhelmingly difficult that you can't do it then. So,
I feel I feel a little bit compelled to explain my reason for the sequencing, because I forget if this was my idea or not. But coming here after doing Forest of Fallen Giants as opposed to going straight to the Bastille was motivated by the fact that this is available right from the central hub, as opposed to being through kind of a semi-hidden, path right behind an optional boss. It makes
tons of sense. I think I did it in a weird way. I think this is the intended second area.
That wasn't even in response to you. There was in one of my streams, people were like, "Oh, it totally makes why are you going here next?" Blah blah blah, and I gave that justification there. So if anybody else had that question in their head, stop yelling at me.
Harry Simpson via Facebook says, "I really like the tower. At first pass, it was very intimidating. It's a gauntlet of giant bros trying to smash you into little bits, and that is great. After learning that you pull them easily or dodge them with little effort, the intimidation wanes, and exploring the tower becomes effortless. The switch that raises the ring around the Dragon Rider, giving you more room to brawl, felt a little gamey." I think we can agree on that. What was the point of that switch when the tower was designed? Was that giant supposed to be stationed at the switch to raise a ring of delicious snacks for the Dragon Rider? If so, props for the snack switch. The tower was short and sweet. 10 out of 10 would snack again.
That's exactly the kind of speculation I like to hear. More like that.
That adds to my grand design of a home, my dream home that will have the raising snack table that will just on command be full of snacks and ready for eating.
Lifted directly to my mouth.
Aren't you just describing a dumbwaiter?
Maybe.
No, I appreciate it. Trust me.
But it would be different because it would raise from the floor where there was no table before, and then suddenly there is table with snacks.
Tell me, does this dream house have a helicopter pad on the top, a pool, and on floors 5, 7, and 14, and also slides instead of stairs? Because I think you're cribbing from my notes.
Slides is definitely in there. Definitely in.
Or at least fireman poles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the Pee Wee Herman breakfast machine. It reminds me of that, like, if it is giving him snacks.
Mark Hudson, kind of following on that via Facebook. The Tower of Flame epitomizes Dark Souls 2 level design. To quote Red Dwarf, such small portions, but so many courses. Same with the bosses, too, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely more discrete chunks with the kind of bonfire to bonfire distances being shorter.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely part of the level design.
Yeah.
So.
Since that one was so short, I'll take Dennis's as well. He says via Facebook, this is Dennis.
Can you do it in your best Dennis impersonation?
So the Dragon Rider boss was a great microcosm.
It's not that bad. We know Dennis. It's not just us picking on somebody who likes our show.
He's one of the co-hosts on the level. Thank you, Dennis. I was in your wedding, Dennis. Don't excommunicate. Please stay on the show, Dennis.
Just impersonate him from the wedding. I do.
Why is he Keanu Reeves?
I don't know. That was my impersonation of you doing an impersonation of Dennis.
Yeah. 2 generations
or it was
down.
like Michelangelo. I crave pizza no more.
He's like the nicest person.
No, he's great.
I know. I just feel bad. I don't know why. So I'll do it in my cold voice.
Okay.
The Dragon Rider boss fight is a great microcosm for how my attitude towards Souls games has changed over time. After being promptly knocked off the edge by my first time through the fog gate, old Dennis would have dug in his heels and spent the next 8 hours beating him the, quote, right way, up close and personal with no summons. Instead, new Dennis, improved Dennis, immediately bought 200 arrows and sheezed him from the overlook. Hey, any way that works is the, quote, right way, right? How fitting it was then that the Dragon Rider turned and put up his shield to block what would have been the killing arrow. Wow. The message couldn't have been more clear. You may have lost your dignity, but I have not. So get your ass down here and finish this fight with honor. Dark Souls. You know exactly how to push my buttons. Thank God I got that final hit without being knocked off the edge, because I don't think I could have brought myself to cheese him with arrows a second time.
Yeah, we didn't mention that during the episode, but I knew this comment was coming because I read it on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to cover it twice, but it's kind of funny that he doesn't put the shield up until the end. Like, it's very consistent. He will let you get him down to 1 hit point, but the killing blow he'll always block.
It's like,
very funny. I was okay with all those other arrows.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, arrow too far.
Yeah, it can only take too much. Am I not hollow? Do I not bleed when you? Do I not turn to ash when you? I don't know how this works. I'm so sorry. I can't.
Different Gary, which is rare. That's a rare name. Hey, Gary, buddy. Gary says, unless it's just me trying to sneak in my... Yeah, I really like the way that Gary's right about all the speculation. Yeah. Also, the bad ending of Demon Souls is the good one. I'm the one person who agrees with him. Anyway,
Gary's pretty much the human equivalent of a motorcycle.
Yeah. You keep calling him Tank. Gary, different Gary via contact says, I discovered Heide's Tower of Flame after coming up against a brick wall with the Ruin Sentinels. After eventually working out where the switch was to get there, I fell in love with the level design. I took one look at the old knight waiting there and ran back to Majula to spend my souls. On my return, I dispatched the first knight with relative ease. The second, however, crushed me like sublime bone dust with that ridiculous mace. I love that mace-wielding knight because he regularly kicks my ass, even if I get complacent. Especially if I get complacent, excuse me. The area after the Dragon Rider was somewhat underwhelming, but I hope there are some surprises in New Game Plus. There aren't.
I'm so sorry, Gary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, other Gary.
You Gary's got to stick together.
Yeah, I know. Gary's before hose.
This isn't a no Gary's club.
Yeah, yeah, even though I think there might be more changes in further new games, I just haven't gotten to them yet. Vadi did a video today, or yesterday, that was like 10 things you didn't know. If you kill all the bosses in New Game plus 10, the flames in the map in the mansion turn blue.
Yep.
New Game plus 10.
Yep.
What? That's so weird.
On to New Game plus 100 and see what happens there.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Turn to ice.
So many courses.
Yeah. Every 100 soul levels, it rotates elements.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All these flames have turned to air.
It's like a bowling alley. Go ahead.
Let's see. Jeremy via contact writes, the Dragon Rider fight is unmemorable and rather easy due to his limited moveset, but does teach new players the importance of stamina conservation and even offers a green blossom outside the fog door. That's very true. They also offer an awesome NPC summon who I didn't use until New Game Plus, when I expected him maybe to be, riding a fucking dragon or doing something challenging. The rather obvious trick to raising the floor, I think, is from software, trying to teach players that there will be opportunities to affect boss chambers. A trick they will need in Earthen Peak. Spoiler alert. His soul doesn't offer anything interesting lore-wise, but can be made into 4 items, including the badass-looking Twin Blade, a redeeming feature of this uninspired fight. I haven't personally seen the Twin Blade, but they look pretty badass in general, so I'm just going to go ahead and take his word for it.
Yeah.
I haven't used them at all yet. I want to try them, but I just it seems like you kind of have to build for them.
Yeah, kind of like lances.
Yeah, exactly like lances. Like I would someday I'll do a lance run through, and someday I'll do a twin blade run through. Mm-hmm. But I'm just on earlier, just haven't gotten there yet.
I think I'm positioned to do a lance run through with my guy right now, though, with the stats that I have.
That's cool. Lances are really good. Like there's a lot of PvP videos out there that show them doing good shit. They look cool too.
And can you poke from behind your shield with the lance?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
And the big thing is they do multi hits, so they break down people's guard really quickly.
Yeah,
that's nice.
And also they have much longer leaping attacks too.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
It really does turn you into a dragoon, which is sweet.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Rob Jenkins rather says via Facebook, was I the only one who thought Anne Orlando upon entering this area? No, I'm sorry. Hypothetical question. Looking up at the Cathedral of Blue brought up so many nostalgic feelings in me. And the icing on the cake was, of course, the boss inside. What a delightful surprise. I've read some people that were disappointed with this kind of reuse, but I thought it was brilliant. A proper stupid grin moment. Dragon Rider is a cool boss, though I fought him properly/honorably the first time, i.e. after raising all the platforms. He's now my go-to guy for all new builds, an easy source of 12k souls if you get him to fling himself off the edge with his first attack. Thanks, Lobos Jr. That's you, dude, for teaching me that. Yeah,
you're welcome, Rob Jenkins.
Yeah. You know what? I find it really, really hard, like, of all the complaints to levy against this area, like, oh, they reused it, therefore it sucks, is not one of the ones. Like, him calling it a proper stupid grin moment kind of encapsulates it for me, which is my delight at this. It probably outweighs any kind of like, wait a minute, that would happen with that,
right?
If it was ever there in the first place.
And the complaint, I don't know. At least I don't understand the complaint necessarily, because it's not like they reuse the same assets and the same animations just to save cost or whatever, because they're completely new models and animations and all of that. So it's like, it's not like they just took the easy path and just threw the same boss in there. They had to go out of their way to recreate the area and recreate the boss fight and all of that.
Yeah, it's so intentional, and it also ties into all of this lore wankery kind of stuff that we're doing, no matter which form of it you support. Like, if the callbacks to it were, imagine it in, say, like, I don't know, like a different game where the theming wasn't about this recursive nature of the land, then yes, it might seem kind of lazy, like a copy and paste job. But that ties so hard into everything else about the game,
Sure.
Yeah.
It is just it supports the thesis too much.
And like, if there was any cynicism to be read into it, it'd be like, oh, it's just blatant fan service. But like, I'm a fan. Serve me.
That's exactly what I want.
Yeah. do this.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, it goes into that. Like, Dark Souls 2 exists as a sequel to Dark Souls 1.
Right.
Like, it is meant to reflect on the first one. It is not meant to stand alone.
Yeah. It's like,
if not,
it's like, a lot of the weapons make a return from Dark Souls 2. Does that mean that's, the weapons aren't, they're silly weapons because they're reused or something like that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's not the relationship between Demon Souls and Dark Souls, Right. It is explicitly a sequel. Like, we're going to see those connections. So thank you, Rob. I'll go ahead and read Chase here. Chase Greenlee says via Facebook, the Blue Cathedral is home to one of my favorite Dark Souls memories. I found my way there pretty early on and was quickly trounced by the old Dragon Slayer. A few days later, my friend and I were playing at the same time, talking over Xbox Live. He hadn't found his way to the area yet, so I directed him there and to go there, and he got there in time for me to hear his first impressions. I hinted that there was something cool to find, and he was on the hunt. After a few hints from my end, I got to hear him discover the old Dragon Slayer, and immediately the wild speculation began. At game night, Nick had not gone to this area yet, but my friend Levi had, both show alumni. And I took Levi, I was like, Ben and Courtney, can I use your bedroom for a minute? And then took him in there to be like, did you see that? And like have that kind of holy shit moment with him, and not spoiling it for anybody else.
Yeah.
Super satisfying.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm missing by not like talking to somebody while playing it, but I treasure those alone moments where I can like take notes in peace.
Yeah, it was a different experience. Like, I had Dark Souls 1 where I was constantly talking to people, and then Dark Souls 2, I went into it mostly blind and talked to you from time to time, but kept a lot of it. It was much more secret, Yeah. So there are just occasional holy shit moments like this I'd have to talk to people about.
Yeah.
And that's not totally true. You talked to me about it too. So.
Yeah. Well, I just
totally
like you said like, oh, did you see the thing in the place? And I was like, yeah, it's totally Anor Londo, which is what I thought at the time before my understanding was tweaked a little bit. But
I thought so too at first. Yeah. Like that was totally where I was at.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense for us to talk to each other about that. It's not like we don't do this.
Yeah, it's not like this isn't a thing we do.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, that concludes kind of the general gameplay stories, but there's a whole other category of letters that we received, which is lore speculation, or, as I am putting in the parenthetical, this must be the place. Go ahead and give us Ben, Mike.
Cool. Ben, via contact, mentions, while I really love the Heide's Tower of Flame, for the obvious thematic callback to the first Dark Souls, my favorite part was the old Dragon Slayer. Of the myriad theories out there regarding his identity, I feel like the strongest evidence points to the old Dragon Slayer actually being Ornstein. Why? Because in retrospect, Ornstein and Smo in Anor Londo were probably illusions of conjured by Gwendolyn to recall two puissant knights at the height of their power and glory. When we finally face the real Ornstein, he is a decrepit, bitter shadow of himself, bereft of purpose and fallen to using dark sorcery like Artorias before him. He was a perfect capstone on the area whose theme evokes an ancient, tarnished jewel that has outlived its purpose. Very well stated, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say half of me was really excited to get Ornstein to half health because I expected Smo to jump down from the top.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, boy, here we go again. But
Oh, my gosh.
sure enough,
So,
it didn't play
one
out.
of my favorite Soapstone messages was outside of that where it just said "fatty?" ? Just expecting that and having it never show up.
I saw one that said, no chest, therefore despair, or something
Yeah.
like that, after you beat him.
Yeah, those self-referential ones are great.
Yeah.
Or, series referential
I
ones.
love this community. Like our friend Jeremy, you know, he chronicles the worst of it, but like there's such just like a wonderful positivity and just kind of humor about people who participate in this. That is great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's see here. Jason says via the contact form, Heide's is an amazing level in the sense that it really encapsulates a lot of Dark Souls 2's themes through its design and lore. The main recurring theme of repurposing is evident in the vista that immediately recalls a sunken Anor Londo and the old knights that recall the slog up the stairs to Ornstein and Smo, leading up to what may or may not be Ornstein himself, whose soul leaves it quite vague whose body it is he actually inhabits. This is where it clicked for me that time and space would work differently in Drangleic/Lordran. Heide's is where it started making design sense that you can warp from the beginning of the game, which was originally a huge letdown. The ability to warp and the sense of displacement it gives you right off the bat plays into the extreme timey-wimeyness of Drangleic and its connections to the Chosen Undead and Lordran.
Which we have termed spacey wastiness.
Yes.
Is what we're calling that.
So catch
Thank
up,
you to
Jason.
Brayden Cameron, who's the originator. It took me a minute. I had to remember who came up with Timey Wimey, and it was Brayden in the New Londo episode.
Ooh.
So if you're looking for the origin of that. Thank you very much, Jason. Jamie says via contact. By the time I got to the Cathedral of Blue, I was sure as I could be that this was Anor Londo, sunk beneath the waves by the cataclysmic force of the chosen undead renewing the first flame in Dark Souls 1. As such, I was equally sure when I went through the fog gate that the disheveled knight I saw before me was the very same Ornstein that we knew and loved from Dark Souls 1. The image of him standing there in a deep depression, mourning the loss of the compatriot that he'd always thought he hated, but really loved, was a genuinely piercing moment of emotional clout. Almost as piercing as the giant goddamn spear, which moments later claimed my life. I never would have predicted that Dark Souls 2 would be the game to make me feel a deep, vicarious sadness at a man's loss of his best friend / oddball buddy, oddball / buddy cop movie / love-hate relationship / platonic life partner. But there you go. From Software, full of surprises.
Did you guys ever get hit with his insta-kill move with old Dragon Slayers? Like just stick you with a spear and hold you up and then drop you over the hilt?
I have not, no.
Yeah, it caught me on a stream and I was really upset because I was about to win.
So is it pretty much the same attack from Dark Souls 1?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just if he manages to get you with the right combination of variables in place, he'll just like pick you up over it and then stomp his spear so you fall over the hilt and die. So
wow.
Yeah,
nice,
pretty gruesome.
I never thought of him as being sad for Smo at this point, but that's a interesting idea, and like there's something kind of sad about it, and like just that lack of pomp, and then the way the music, which is very like kind of like gets you pumped, but is also the way all the best Souls music is also kind of sad.
Sure.
Yeah. He's missing one of his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike, do you want to grab Murph?
Oh, Yeah, sure. Murphy via Facebook. Lore speculation. The old knights are from Anor come here to retrieve Guinevere when she ran off with Heide. They broke in through the hole in the basement. Unable to find and retrieve her, or unable to return, they went hollow and paced the ruins. Ages later, smugglers use the hole, but that gets into the next area.
Yeah, something made that hole.
Yeah, something.
I don't know what.
Definitely did, and connected it right conveniently to that gigantic underground cove. I don't know that it was smug. Not to poke holes in your theory, Murph. I really respect you as a person. But like, isn't it pretty much stated directly that on the Undead Wharf was where people were shanghaied to under cover of night by Vendrick to get them to the Lost Bastille?
I know that getting them to the Lost Bastille is part of the purpose of that. I need to go through it with my fine-tooth comb that I go through before I get there, but that's the purpose of the Flexile Sentry and that ship.
Yeah.
So the way the kind of yo-ho-ho, pirate wharf area, like all the boozing and drinking and stuff that goes on there, that part I don't necessarily understand, fitting into it. But it would make sense that it is literally there to bring undead.
Yeah.
There, like the ship part definitely is. The town part, I don't know.
I feel kind of like an asshole because they could still be smugglers even if they were working for Vendrick, so that is totally like a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know what the rank and file, guys. They have that armor from a
Viking lands.
Yeah, exactly. They come from a different land.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're doing there. I know what the ship is doing there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more next episode, but we might as well say it here in this bridge between the two areas that it's notable that. God, notable! I need to stop saying that fucking word. It's notable that
get a dictionary or a calendar.
Get a calendar.
Get a dictionary just sounded really mean. What I meant to say was we could call back to the other time I was mean, rather than
to all those other times where you castigated me for dating to use a multi-syllable word.
Yeah, like. I don't want to sound pretentious, but Itchy and Scratchy present a dramaturgical dyad.
It's efficiency, damn it! It's efficiency. It's efficiency, so long as you don't call me out. No, but I forget what I was even going to say. Fuck.
Take that.
Oh no! It's notable that the cathedral connects directly to this horrible place. So you get the idea that people who are coming here for sanctuary were being, taken away, specifically because they were in the most need. So,
yeah, maybe like Shades of Latria.
Yeah.
With that. Yeah. Totally possible. Levi says via contact. So let's say that Hades is where Guinevere went after she fled Anor Londo. It makes sense that Ornstein would be here as well, since he is her bodyguard, and it's probably also safe to say that he was an illusion when we fought him in Anor Londo. Now, why is he using dark magic? Well, he is a renowned dragon slayer living in a land that is filled with dragons, and this probably made him very uncomfortable. In an attempt to give him more methods to defend himself and relieve his dragon anxiety, I suffer from similar anxieties, he probably started dabbling in the dark art of his former dragon-slaying compatriot, Havel. The effects of the magic debilitate the user after leaving leaving a fraction slower, and also dull his once pristine armor. Yeah, hexes are powerful as shit. He just discovered what we all discovered when we made a hex build.
Yeah.
So, it just seems like he picked the wrong hexes because they're not very
his hexes are pretty good. Yeah. Well, he's probably got like 10 faith and like 40 intelligence. So he's just
doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so I believe that arc as much as I believe the one that I initially settled on, which is that he was consumed by the abyss in Lordran and resurfaced through the chasms here.
Mm-hmm.
If
he came, if he came over with Guinevere, though, that was pre-abyss Lordran.
Okay.
So because by the time you get to Anor Londo, Guinevere has been long gone.
Okay.
So they fled once the curse started.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, what could have happened is he could have, if he was still there, if he didn't leave with Guinevere, if he left later to the same area, like was seeking sanctuary, that he could have left after Lordran fell to the abyss. It could also be, spoiler space machinations
Yeah.
When she came over and started farting all over everything.
Oh yeah, that he would have followed the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So those things would all make sense too.
So not everybody dug the lore and kind of beauty of this area. They're wrong. No, but there's a whole section here of kind of like criticisms, which we will dive into with our good friend and a alumni of the show, Jeremy Greer, Naughty CEC on YouTube. Via Facebook says, I really love the visuals in this area, but my God, is it boring to play through after the first time. At least it's short, and at least the enemies are typical Dark Souls dumb enemies, so you can kill them quickly, or, surprise, just run past them. The sewer bit is interesting, if only for the architecture, but it's just more of the same dumb enemies. I also don't think that any of the area is in Orlando crumbling, or is related to in Orlando in any way. I like the idea of this being the place that Guinevere rode off to, but even that seems too pat for me. Yeah, I don't like it. It is pat. I don't know if that is necessarily a bad thing. And
that doesn't seem that pat to me. Like, it seems more pat, the idea of it just being Anne Orlando seems pretty pat. It has the same architecture and is the same thing.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it is now in an ocean, whereas like Anne Orlando was at the top of an arch tree.
Yeah.
Like Anne Orlando was nowhere near sea level.
Yeah.
That seems like, I guess that doesn't seem pat. It seems incredulous, but pat at first glance because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. And I didn't, even I, until tonight, when it was brought up in somebody's response, didn't draw the connection between Guinevere, Flan, Flame, and Heide, and the Tower of Flame, and that is what's driving my current understanding of it right now. But yeah, that's a couple of steps of remove, right?
Yeah, and I don't totally disagree with you about the gameplay. Like, it's not my favorite area gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
I like the shock and awe, and I like how hard these guys are because I faced them very early. But especially the second half of it, the church part is one of my least favorite areas in the game. So, but I love how it looks. Like, I just like how it looks too much to, it forgives a lot for me.
Yeah.
No. I think we skipped you, Mike. Do you want to grab Sean?
Sure. Sean via contact. His criticism is, let's see. Heide's Tower of Flame, a game of chess set in a surreal landscape. The simple, abstract nature of the level makes for enjoyable gameplay, but leaves me wanting a bit more flavor and depth to cover up the bones of the gameplay and really throw myself into the thematic experience, which could have been so rich and interesting. The design of the area really works with the theme, a civilization at its dusk before sinking into oblivion. The enemies are like pieces on a chessboard. Their slow but devastating attacks create a calculated experience that is learned by moving through it repeatedly. The area feels very conceptual in nature, with no room to explore and appreciate the ruins of Heide. This pulled me out of the experience, and I felt like I was moving through choreographed game experience rather than being immersed in the area. This could have been helped by having some ruins to explore radiating off of the main path, which is so linear and straightforward that it doesn't really feel like ruins. The very light lore provided by the area also contributes towards the area feeling, dare I say it, a bit hollow in retrospect. Despite the beautiful landscape of Heide's Tower, I ultimately enjoyed it less than other areas in the game. This might be one of the least immersive areas I've explored so far.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
I think that the part of that I probably agree with the most is the idea of there being kind of more ruins to explore.
Yeah.
Feeling
definitely.
more like a complete, feeling like a complete area or a complete civilization, as opposed to just literally like the path that didn't sink.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
It makes a little, just the barest, faintest bit of sense that all you're seeing are the highest levels, which aren't necessarily going to be, the most restricted, like floor space wise. Because everything else has been devoured by the sea. But you're right. Like, one of my favorite things about Anne Orlando was actually seeing these royal living quarters and seeing the portraits and all of this other, just awesome flavor stuff. And just how linear and how laid bare this was. I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely when you first enter Anne Orlando for the first time, you can look down and see, tons of architecture and buildings of all sorts of nature. But and this one, you pick out maybe 3 or 4 big buildings and spots that you tack onto, but then the rest of the area is just kind of bare.
Yeah. I mean, comparing it to Anne Orlando, other than the fact that it looks like it, isn't necessarily fair.
Sure.
Because like Anne Orlando is a real kind of tentpole for the first game, and this was never meant to be that. Mm-hmm. But like it definitely, I mean, I don't disagree that I wish that there was more to it, and it was more like exploring this culture, especially if Heide is a whole different area. Like everything we're going to know about Heide, we're going to learn by exploring it, and there's just not that much to explore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah. Wrapping up the criticism part, DJ Davis says via Facebook, at first glance, this area is gorgeous. Looking up, you can see the stars in the darkening sky, and the crumbling, ruin-like nature of the buildings creates a sense of time gone by. Unfortunately, the area as game level is rather uninteresting. The path is linear without any secret areas that I could find, and the enemies are slow and easy, and the 2 boss battles set the stage for a huge number of boss battles to come. A battle against a humanoid combatant in a static arena in which you simply circle around to the right and attack the butt. The titular Tower of Flame is not explorable and is simply used as stage dressing. I was excited as I anticipated being able to climb up to the top of the tower, discovering and exploring the structure as I went, and ultimately disappointed that I was unable to. Its one saving grace is one of the most memorable NPCs, a cleric consumed by greed, fueled by a prosperity gospel ideology, who tricks the PC into thinking that only a miracle can open a certain path. Another cool thing about the level is that it leads to one of the best levels in the game, and I like the narrative implications of these 2 areas connecting.
Yeah. Spot on.
So,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say that I don't necessarily agree with that is that I like the battles against humanoid combatants.
Yeah.
Like, when I think about the battles in Dark Souls 1 that, like, that would contrast with, they're not usually my favorites. Like, my favorite Dark Souls battles were, like, the ones where it feels just kind of like a fight. Yeah. And I've said that before. Like, Artorias is my favorite boss battle in either game. And then, I like the fight with Gwyn. Mm-hmm. I like the fight with Taurus Demon, which is not a humanoid combatant, but he's at least, it's like a melee fight. Mm-hmm. Compared to something like Seath, where it's like about, like, managing AoE and that kind of thing, not using lock-on. I like that a little bit less. Like, I don't really have a problem with there being more kind of one-on-one melee fights in this game than the first one.
Looking at places where Dark Souls used scale, it was almost always, against it, and those were not the memorable fights. Like Ceaseless Discharge, or even, the Iron Golem. Like, those are just kind of, white noise almost.
Yeah, and some of them were memorable from a set point perspective, but not necessarily from a gameplay perspective.
Yeah,
like I don't think or like Centipede Demon. Like I hate that boss fight. Like there are some just kind of rotten boss fights that are trying that just don't work as well, I think.
Sure.
So, and some of the one-on-one person-to-person boss fights in this game, I really, really love. Like Velstat's probably my favorite boss fight in this game, and I really like Ruin Sentinels. And there's several of them where you're fighting against people, but it's just more satisfying to dodge. Like, it just feels good,
sure.
Getting up in there. So, but the rest of it I think is right on.
Yeah, I could agree with the complaint about a bunch of simple humanoid attacking the butt fights. If maybe that was the bulk of the fights that they have, but granted, they do have quite a few in Dark Souls 2. But there's also a lot more bosses, so I don't know. Those types of fights have their place, and I think definitely these 2 instances were fine uses of them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the fact that they're back to back is what people are picking up on.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it gets real interesting real fast too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, like insofar as the very next boss we're going to talk about specifically discourages attacking the butt by making the butt not accessible.
Yeah.
Huh. Yep. So looking here into the just fun and section, which is things that are not related but still fun to talk about. I wanted to mention here specifically on the show, there's a video that you have to watch.
Yep.
It was brought up in our Facebook. It's called How to Beat, the Bosses of Dark Souls 2, which is by a YouTube channel called My Life in Gaming, which to a spooky degree exactly mimics the 90s Game Guide VHS tape aesthetics. Like, it is just the best thing.
It's really funny.
I was raring to have a shitty day the morning that was posted, and just by the fact of watching that, I had a good day. And there are just like enough inaccuracies, like they call them campfires instead of bonfires, and they call the old Iron Keep Magma Mansion.
Magma Mansion. You fight Authority, the Royal Rat.
Yeah. And they're like good tips too, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. It's not quite to the degree. Like, I love the fake guide for Dark Souls 1 with like the Dark Templar class and all the prong damage and stuff. That's one of my favorite videos that's ever been done of Dark Souls. So like the humor isn't quite there because they're actually good tips, but the verisimilitude of like the 90s-ness of it is great. Like it's a great video. It's super funny.
Yeah. So go check that out. We'll put that in the notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What's
Do you
up?
want to read Adam's?
Yep.
Cole?
Sure. So Adam says via contact, I want to share a quick story about some New Game Plus Forest of Fallen Giants PvP. I was looking for the host and noticed that the explosive barrel bonfire shortcut hadn't yet been triggered. A quick fireball ignited the barrels and blew up the wall. As the smoke cleared, I could see the host standing right in front of me in the bonfire room. Our duel wasn't that interesting, but I love thinking about our encounter from his perspective. All is quiet around the bonfire when the wall in front of him, boom, explodes, and here I am. Would have been great. Would have been a great opportunity for some Katarina Armour Kool-Aid Man cosplay. I include that in the responses just because that has to be the best entrance I've heard a story of.
Yeah, that's super great.
Yep.
When I mentioned it when we did our Dark Souls 1 PvP, but when I made my like toxic lord guy, I took that the rusting spell and just used it to make entrances. So I would just stand on one side of a corner, lit out a cloud of that thing, and then just walk out of it. And that was the entire point of it. Like, I would never cast that on a person. It was just to emerge from.
That's awesome.
Like, if you could have just played over chat by like proximity chat, Crazy Train. Yep. Like, oh man, here comes the boom. Oh man. So thank you, Adam. That was a fun story.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Take says via contact, I just finished my No Bonfire New Game Plus run. Jesus. It was pretty interesting since no bonfires means Estus isn't unlimited, weapon durability is an actual factor, and you have to be selective of which bonfires you choose to touch. Lighting is okay, sitting is not. Some highlights include not being able to return to Majula from No Man's Wharf because I set the turning room to the cops and then died, sending me to my last checkpoint in the wharf.
Wow.
Appreciating how large the world of Drang Lake is. Like people who ignore fast travel in Bethesda games, being forced to actually run from one end to another, sometimes through ridiculously dangerous terrain, really makes you appreciate how big the world is. Sitting down and actually writing a plan for how to approach the last quarter of the game, which requires traveling all over the land. And just dealing with nasty New Game Plus surprises that didn't exist in the ordinary game. I was inspired to do it after seeing Lobos Jr.'s run of it, which was amazing, like many of his runs. Do you guys place any conditions on yourself when you play these games? Like no summoning, no magic, or whatever else it might be? And it looks like there's a YouTube link. Is that to the run that he did?
Yep.
Awesome. That's great. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Take is one of our like superstar contributors. Like he's done a lot of good stuff. So go check it out because he knows his shit.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Funny story to the end of my No Bonfire run. Actually, I did not complete it because 95% of the way through the game, after talking to Melentia, who had not sent back to Majula and was still in the Tower of the Giant, the Cardinal Tower, I habitually just turned around and immediately started spamming X to try and go down the ladder and proceeded to sit at the bonfire. So that was the end of that.
So inauspicious.
And I've not yet returned to the run yet, but I definitely will in the future.
Yeah. Wow, that's funny.
I also had no planning for the run, so after I did the entire string of areas all the way to, I guess, Dragon Airy, I had a rough time having to run all the way back through Shrine of Amana and all that. It was no fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, can you give me a little bit of insight into how much planning goes into one of these runs?
Very little, but it actually kind of it sometimes ends up being better that way, sort of. I don't know. People will sometimes give me ideas, or I'll think of an idea and I'll say, yeah, let's do it. For example, my bow only run, like, sure, that seems like a logical run to do. However, I had no previous research other than the fact that I knew there was a short bow in Leningrad's little hut. That was the only bow I knew of. So it's kind of an experience to interact with chat and go, what bows exist? And they're like, oh, this bow exists. Because, yeah, I don't know. I typically go straight for the challenge runs and don't spend too much time exploring a lot. So I deprive certain information that normal players would absolutely have.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, but you got the kind of the viewer base that kind of shores up that. That's really interesting. That you have because you go straight for the challenge runs.
Exactly. So, they're kind of my partners in crime when I try to attempt these runs, and they back me up with the info as needed.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So
I haven't done I haven't done tons of challenge stuff. Just like answer the question. Like I will always fight a boss without summoning the first time, or probably the first couple times. Like I try not to summon right away.
Right.
And then I've done I usually will try to do no shield is like an early thing I've done in all the games. And then I did a couple challenge run things for Dark Souls 1, but that were not like I did the all magic Gravelorded thing, which it didn't end up being that hard at all. Like they're not super challenge runs; they're just mildly challenging.
Sure.
But yeah. I am actually. I'm going to do a whip run. I was watching your whip run, and that was something I plan on doing anyway because they're hilarious. Yeah,
they are. Yeah. Power stancing whips is quite a thing, especially when you get that spotted whip. It applies poison so easily, and it's just devastating.
Yeah,
they are funny.
Yeah. And I'm not good enough at either game to do any of these, so any which way but loose, whatever works and gets me through it. So.
Well, part of the reason why I do the first playthrough super safe is because I want to look at everything.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to be worrying about, those kind of tactical considerations we're talking about when I want to try to, stop and be able to read item descriptions and stuff and everything. But later I get more into doing that stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's everything for this. It's actually, we have recorded, by the time you hear this, we have recorded our episode about No Man's Wharf, or Dead Man's Wharf. No Man's Wharf. I think I called it Dead Man's Wharf in the last episode. So just because we have a scheduling thing with our guest for that, which you will hear next week, which is our riff from Video Games Hot Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. We'll have already recorded it by the time you listen. So It was good and fun. He is a nice dude.
Yeah, I'm sure it was great.
Yeah. But, if you have any thoughts on kind of the next area that we're going to do, which is the Lost Bastille, then go ahead and send them to us. That is Duckfeed.tv/contact. Use the little drop-down menu to get Bonfireside Chat, or hit us up on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Bonfireside Chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/LobosJR, Lobos Jr., as well as on YouTube, youtube.com/Lobos Jr. Gaming.
Highest recommendation there. So definitely check that out. And several of you already have, obviously, but I'm happy about that. Yeah. So, and then we've been recording for a long time.
Yeah.
If you want to find the rest of our stuff, if you go to Duckfeed.tv, you can find it. Oh, we have to do the full admin right now. But
no, we don't.
Yeah.
Leave us a rating on iTunes if you have the opportunity or the inclination, and do duckfeed.tv/tipjar. That Amazon link there really helps us out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And until next time, what can they do, Cole?
They can, again, can't underline enough, go check out Mike's stuff, and also, watch out for deleted scenes. Oh, and Seek Misery.
Yeah, go to twitch.tv/Lobos Jr. lest this land devour you whole. So.
Also, go ahead and register that because you'll need it. Just by way of politeness, asking your preference, would you prefer that when we are referring to you casually that we say Mike or Lobos?
Whichever you are more comfortable calling me. Honestly, everybody in real life calls me Lobos, so you're welcome to do so as well.
Mm-hmm. I will probably say Mike, but we want to make sure that we introduce you as such.
Sure.
initially. So
Not a problem.
Yeah. Is that a real life nickname that kind of bled into your stream?
Yeah, but it's been around since I was in, I don't know, 7th grade or so. So,
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty good nickname, I gotta say.
Yeah, everyone just calls me Dickface. That's not true. The last
Not
one
as good.
that. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't sound badass at all.
Doesn't have that ring to it.
Yeah, nobody's gonna name like a cool gang after. It's never gonna be like the Los Angeles Dick Faces. Whereas you can very easily have like Texas Lobos.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
There actually is a New Mexico Lobo team.
Oh yeah. I'm doing. We're starting a new game for game night.
Yep.
And the character I'm playing is a ventriloquist. So I keep looking at all this ventriloquism stuff because I thought it would be, if it was at all easy, which it's not, but I was just kind of idly looking at it while killing time, and how awesome it would be if I actually came in with the dummy and was like doing it. And then I was looking at custom prices to get a ventriloquist dummy that looks like you. And it runs you about $8,000, unfortunately.
That's great. Well, I mean, a bespoke Gary dummy.
I would be pretty into it.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd be
just like,
well, that way if somebody kills you, your soul could inhabit it and take revenge.
yeah, like a Horcrux.
Exactly.
Like, who never knew where Gary hid his soul? And then there's just like a tiny me on the shelf, like just look with the eyes going back and forth in that wooden like kind of way.
I gotta say, that's the worst part about being turned into a dummy is you always have to laugh like meh, 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 meh.
Yeah. If you ever get to laugh again.
Well, true. Depends on if somebody picks you up.
Did you ever see Dolls? We ever talked about that? It's a Stuart Gordon movie. That's the guy who did Reanimator and Dagon and a bunch of movies I like.
I've not seen it.
It is a horror movie about this guy, this kindly old man who makes dolls, and this couple ends up like staying there the night during a storm, and then these teens break in and end up just kind of stealing from them, and then they get this like the dolls get this like terrible revenge on them. And one of the characters ends up being turned. He's like a yuppie guy, and he ends up being turned into a punch doll, and it's terrifying.
Yeah,
like it is a really gross. Like the movie's super scary. Like they take the people and they are turning them into these dolls. Like, but when they're still like partly flesh and blood. It's super creepy.
Yeah, transformation stuff really bugs me.
Yeah, me too. A Willow scene.
Okay, sorry about that. I opened a fresh bottle of mead, and I don't know if you've ever had mead, but this mead is incredibly fizzy and takes like 10 minutes once you open the bottle to fully fizz out and settle down.
We got the mead you need.
Yes.
I think I've only had I had one can of mead once, but I've had homemade mead a couple of times, and It was not carbonated.
Interesting.
Yeah, way back in the day.
Sure.
So,
I had mead that was so homemade that there was a bug in it.
Nice.
Yeah. I was very put off of mead because of that.
Oh, too bad.
That's how they get the fizz. They put the crushed up bees right in it.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Like orbits.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, it was like a little fruit fly, and I was like, "Yep, this has been an experience." Fortunately, the person who made it wasn't there, so it was like,
Well, would they have been offended? Like if you're just like, "There's a bug in this," they'd be like, "Look, that's
protein.
me. You drink it." Like I like to think that no one begrudges someone not eating bugs.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, in a lot of ways, I'm too polite.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, especially when it comes to bug eating.
Yeah, I know.
So if this makes it on to air, if you ask Cole to eat a bug, he has to do it. So use it against him if you ever meet him in person.
Excellent.
It's like if you say my true name backwards.
All
Get Cole to eat a bug and he'll do whatever you want.
Eloxor. Okay, let's.
I said
let's
true
get
name,
going.
Gary.
Oh, okay. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
Mike.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
You were going to introduce me. My bad.
Oh no. Go ahead and say your name, and then we'll go through and introduce you. I'm sorry, I probably wasn't clear. Sorry
Not a
about that.
problem.
Cool. So I'll say my name. Cole say his name. Go ahead and say your name. I'll introduce the show, and then Cole will introduce you.
Cool.
Okay. And there's no good reason for that. Like we very well could just introduce you. It's just how we've always done it.
Yeah.
So okay.
I am out of Soda Stream, so I'm drinking canned soda water like an animal.
Yeah. You miserable failure. I'm going to make a noise real quick. Sorry about that. My cat is kind of nosing around my router.
Oh.
So I'm going to spraying some compressed air to Boris, get out there, buddy. Okay.
This is where the distractions come from.
Yeah, that's true. Fun fireside cat.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon